Welcome to the explanation for the Emu mirror. Thank you for purchasing the guide if you did, and I appreciate you watching this video if you're watching this through YouTube. Now, because this is going to be viewed through YouTube and a lot of people aren't going to be fully familiar with some of Emu's cards, for this video that's going up on my channel, I am going to be putting the text of each card on the screen when they come up so that you're not lost as to what is actually going on. But this is going to be the only video like this within my guide, because if you're up to this section within my guide, I assume that you already know all of the cards by now. I'm going to be starting with Emu going first. The player going first is going to be represented by the Dong cards. The first World's Dong cards and the second World's Dong cards will show first and second in the game. And I'll be talking about the moves from the player going first, concealing the hand of the player going second while still playing both sides so that we have a fair and even match of two equally skilled players, because they're both me. As for a difference in the deck lists, both of the deck lists have been shown on the screen, so you can see exactly how they're different. The one that I'm going to be using is the one that I use in my 3v3, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the best deck for the mirror and stuff in mind. It's just one of the decks that I've used, because it's not necessarily important what deck you're using and exactly which cards you're playing, but more how you use them. So I'm just going to be using a deck that I use which isn't optimized for the mirror versus a very standard popular deck within the meta. Before we go into the mulligan, after we choose our sides, we obviously choose our stage, and both sides will be picking Marijoa, because Never Existed can get rid of the 7-cost stage. When you're going first, the card that you're looking for the most within your starting hand is going to be the 4-cost Saturn. There are some patterns where you don't actually need Saturn, but most of the times you really want to find that Saturn, especially if you're going first. So therefore, although I do have some really nice cards like Gorose Kogoni, or sorry, I don't know what it's called in English, the search event, and also Charlos, because we're going first, we don't actually have too many timings to play both of these compared to if you're going second. If we were going second, I could still consider this hand, but I would still mulligan it due to the fact that I only have one card that I really want to play on turn 1. Therefore, I'm going to mulligan this hand, hoping that I find something like the 4-cost Saturn. And I've checked my hand for the player going second, and I think I'm going to keep it. Just so you guys know, this is my starting hand. I have 2 searchers, and that's very good if you're going second. So that's why I'm going to be keeping this hand. From here on out, though, you won't be able to see the player going second's hand. Now, our hand got worse, but thankfully we still have our leader ability, so we can fix this, where this would be pretty devastating for a lot of other decks. Let's set our life and finally get into the game. The very early game for Emu, you really want to be looking to get 7 cards into your trash to not be punished by cards like the 6-cost Marcus Mars. Marcus Mars can develop a character that will eventually become a 7,000 power attacker, while also clearing one of the opponent's characters, making it very powerful within the mirror. If you can get to 7 cards within your trash, you can very easily mitigate this. So therefore, we are going to want to be using our search event on this first turn while we have Wandong. But before we do so, because this is a search event and we can choose our options, we'd prefer to just use our leader effect first, because we don't have control over the single card that we'll end up drawing. So I'm going to use my leader effect to trash Razord, because it's not very useful in this matchup. It's more useful in some other matchups, especially in 3v3s like the Rayleigh matchup or the Greensword matchup. And we're going to draw a card, hoping to find exactly that. So this is the card that we really want to be looking for in the mirror, and I'll explain why when we get there. Still though, we still have Wandong, so we're going to use that Wandong to play out the search event to check the top 3. Now, what we really want to be looking for in the early game, as much as possible, is going to be the 4-cost Saturn. Thankfully, we have one, so we can start to get the snowball rolling, but this is actually going to be a very difficult decision. Now, because we have to play the 1-cost Marijoa stage, the 1-cost counter event is not actually very valuable within the mirror. Yes, there are some times to use it, and it's definitely much better than this 1-cost event, but picking this up right now is not worth it, because there's a good chance that if you end up drawing more, that they end up getting stuck in your hand without very many timings to be able to use it. This search is going to be between Peter and Mars. Peter's very good because he will increase the power of your 5,000 power attackers to 7,000 on the turn that he's played, whether it's on 7, 8, or 9 dong. Mars is also very good if the opponent doesn't end up managing to get 7 cards into their trash. However, if the opponent does end up getting 7 cards into their trash, then this Mars becomes completely useless. And Peter is never going to be useless because of how powerful he is on the board, and also just simply being a 2K. Therefore, although Mars is really nice to have as an option for when we get to 5 dong, if the opponent doesn't manage to drop enough cards into their trash, I'm going to be picking up Peter because it is the safer option. Now, one tip when you're playing this deck is that I think that you should absolutely separate the Gorose and the rest of your trash, just to make sure at all times that you have all 5 in your trash. When you're searching or when you're using your leader effect, it's very important to know exactly which Gorose you've dropped into your trash, and just keeping track of it, separating it within your trash is going to be very helpful for you visually, trust me. We've used our leader effect, we've done our search. We now have 4 cards in our trash. That means we're only 3 away from getting to 7 cards in our trash, and we will pass turn. Player going second, I'm going to leader effect to drop 1 card into trash and draw 1 card. Then for 1 don, gorose kogo ni. And I'm going to pick up the Tenkasu gorose. 1 more don, gorose again. Pick up Peter. Drop the rest into trash and end turn. The opponent already has 7 cards in the trash now, so if we did have Mars in our hand, then it would be a very good target to just drop with our trash from now on, because it's not going to be useful for the rest of the game and is just a blocker of which we have better options. But we don't have to face that situation right now. Right now, on this 3-dong turn, it's very simple. Now, thanks to the fact that we actually have Saturn in our hand, we will want to be using this, but we do want to use our leader effect first. The 1 cost plus 3,000 event, 世界の均衡など永遠には保てるのだ is a very good card in a lot of other matchups, particularly in Ace and Roger, but it's not necessarily very good within this matchup because a lot of the times they're going to be going for your board and not your life, and because this card only gives you 3,000 counter to your leader, it's very tricky to use, especially after you hit 10 dong. Therefore, we want to get rid of these early on if we draw them to hopefully draw into some better cards. Nastro is going to be decent later on if we end up going towards that plan. But still, let's start with 5,000 at leader. I think I'll just take this attack. For 3 don't play Saturn. Actually kind of sucks to see. We don't want to see the Saturns together, and we don't really want to drop too many Gorose. But thankfully, because this is the first Gorose, we don't have to worry about that too much, just hopefully draw into the other ones. We will be picking up Saturn. It is the very obvious choice because it is the card that we do want to play next turn in most scenarios. Unfortunately though, because we have to send the rest to the bottom, that means that our chances of finding more Saturn after this are going to be a lot lower. Still, we're going to pick up the Saturn and send the rest to the bottom. The order is actually important. Make sure to actually remember how many cards, which cards you're sending to the bottom so you can keep track of how much counter you may have in your life towards the end of the game. I'm going to send it to the bottom in this order. I want to draw into the Tenkasu gorose as fast as possible, and honestly just these 2 cards aren't very useful in the late game. At the very least, Charles is going to be a blocker, so just putting them into the bottom very simply in the priority of cards that would actually need them. And enter. First, for 1 don, I'm going to play Sharia. Check the top 3, and I'm going to pick up Worker, I guess. Drop the rest into trash, and trash 1 card from hand. Then I'm going to use my leader effect to get rid of Sharia from the board and draw 1 card. Then let's hit for 5,000 at leader. Now, because we have 5 cards in our trash right now, next turn, if we use our leader effect once, we're going to end up being at 6, which means that we're still in a range of one of our characters being burned by Marcus Mars. Therefore, we need to make sure that next turn we can get to 7 cards in trash. The best way to do that would be to play the 1-cost Charlos on the next turn, but we don't have that. Therefore, what you want to do instead of that is to either defend this attack so that you can make sure that you get to 7, or better, to have a searcher. As we have a searcher, we know that we can guarantee that we can get 7 cards into our trash next turn, so therefore there's no rush to actually defend this attack, and we will take this attack because, especially as the player going first, we really want to have these resources to defend our board. For 3 don't play Workery, as unfortunately I didn't have Saturn, and end turn. Interesting. So although I was talking about playing Shadia the turn before, as we have both cards as options, it's actually just better to use the search event. Usually playing the character has some merit as the character actually stays on the board, but because you're just going to use your leader effect to get rid of the character immediately for 1 draw, the character doesn't end up staying, and therefore using a card that doesn't have counter is going to be much better because you don't want these cards stuck in your hand in the late game. Basically this turn, because of the way that we have been drawing, is likely going to end up being just a search plus Saturn. Hopefully from the search that we can find something like 2-cost Charlos so that we can make our turn stronger. The other option on this turn would be to play Nasajiro, but I don't necessarily think that we need to. Not only do we have a lot of searches that we can really easily fill out this 5 dong with, but also because the opponent played Warrior on this turn, we're starting to build a resource advantage. If we can continue to expand that with things like Saturn, or if we can find them things like Charlos, then we can start to really take a hold of this game. Therefore, I'm going to start with a simple 5,000 leader. I'm going to 2K. Because we already know that we're going to use all 5 of our dong, there's no reason for us to actually use these cards first and give the opponent more information, so I'm just going to hit for 5K once again, because there's never a world where that Saturn's going to hit for more than 5K. Honestly, my hand going second right now is difficult to deal with, but it's not something that I can't fix. I'm going to 2K this attack. Now for 1 dong, although before we used our leader effect first, because there's a chance that we end up using Sharia and we want to use our leader effect on Sharia, we're going to use the search event first because it keeps our options open. We somehow found another Saturn, which is crazy. I think that probably picking up Saturn is just the best thing here. Although unfortunately we didn't find in Charlos, this Saturn does effectively the same sort of thing in expanding our resources as it helps us save a card. So very happy to see what is our 4th Saturn, although we were only able to pick up 3. This is going to be very helpful for us going first in solidifying this game. Next, because we didn't find Charlos, let's use Shadia. So we did actually find the Charlos that we needed, but it's 1 search too late. Because we only have 3 dong left, we don't actually have the time to play out Saturn as well as Charlos on this turn. Therefore, his priority has suddenly dropped within searches. Now, when it comes to these cards, the things that you want to consider is which cards you actually are going to need. Next turn, because we're going to play Saturn once on this turn, next turn we're going to play the Saturn plus another 4 cost, and we now have the other 4 costs. But on that 7 dong turn, because playing those 2 4 costs is only going to cost us 6 because of the stage, making it cost 3 and 3, we actually have 1 dong left over where we would want to play something like Charlos or like Never Existed. So honestly, all of these cards are not bad. The factor then that would come into this decision is which cards you've sent to the bottom of your deck. However, because this is the first time that we've seen Never Existed and Warcury, the chance of us finding another one is exactly the same, and we have 10 more cards that we can look through from just the searches alone. Therefore, weirdly, it kind of doesn't really matter which one we'll take, but because it's going to be very bad if we miss out on Warcury on the next turn, I'm going to pick up Warcury just because that's the safer option. Then, from Shadia's effect, I do need to trash a card. We don't need this in this matchup, so I will just easily get rid of that. And I will use my lead effect to draw 1 card. And there we go. I mean, it was luck at the end of the day, because I could just have ended up stuck with 2 of these. But you'd rather be stuck with 2 Warcuries than 2 Never Existed, because this card, once you get to 10 dong, is effectively a counterless card. So we made the right decision with that search, and we were immediately very visually rewarded for it. Lastly, for 3 dong, play Saturn and check the top 5. Now, especially from these Saturn searches, we need to consider which cards we're sending to the bottom and which cards we're unlikely to see anymore. Thankfully, we already have a Peter as well as a Mars in our trash or hand, so we don't have to think about picking these up just to make sure that we have things for our 10 cost Gorose. So therefore, we could just pick whatever the best card is. And as we mentioned, that King Cole is more or less a brick within the mirror. I'm going to be picking up Peter. And remember, guys, it's very important to remember your pile. If at the end of the game, the side going first actually ends up winning, then maybe you could do a test with yourself if you can figure out which cards are left within the pile. A bit of a difficult task, but if you want to play Emo to its maximum limit, then you should start to figure out what's in your life. And let's enter. Draw 1. Oh, okay, huge. 5k Saturn. Now, as we already have the necessary cards that we need in our trash, we don't actually have the empty throne on the board, so the 19 card clause doesn't actually mean anything. These searchers don't really do too much anymore because we already have all 5 of our Gorose ready. If we were missing one, then we could consider holding on to it just to make sure that we can find it by the 10 dong turn. But right now we have all the pieces that we need, so we don't necessarily need to dig further into our deck because doing so may end up just filtering out good cards in our hand. So let's just get rid of that Shadia for counter. 3 dong, Saturn, pick up Nasajiro, and 3 dong, Saturn. Thankfully, we got there in the end. Very lucky draws. Pick up Gorose, enter. Now, thankfully, as the player going first, I would have uploaded this regardless of how well this went, but we are drawing very, very well. So it's going to be very simply 3 dong for Saturn, 3 dong for Warcury, and 1 dong left for this event. Now, honestly, looking at our hand, is there any card that we really want in our hand that's not these cards? We have sufficient 2Ks, we have exactly the 1 counter event that we need. If we overdraw it, then it's going to start to become a problem. And we even have a response to if the opponent does something off of the norm. Not only that, but we also have what's going to be our 10 dong play, meaning that we have our turns set up for basically the next 3 or 4 turns, which may actually end up being the entire game. So we don't actually need to use our leader effect anymore. This is quite important because if, for example, I use my leader effect to think like maybe the worst card in my hand now is Warcury because I already have the 2 Warcuries that I'm going to play, or the 2 forecasts I'm going to play on this turn. If I get rid of this and I find a counterless card, then now I have 1 less attack that I can defend and I can start to build up bricks in my hand. The one most dangerous thing within the mirror is just filling up your hand with bricks. So right now, because we have all of our Gorose in our trash or hand ready for when we get to 10 dong, and we have a decent hand that's not full of bricks, using our leader effect can actually be a detriment. So therefore, I'm not going to use my leader effect, and instead, I'm just going to keep doing what I did before and swinging 5s. Thankfully, as these characters can't be removed by effects, it's fine to hit from your leader first. 5k leader, 1k, 5k leader, 1k, 5k leader, I'm going to take for 3 don't, play out Saturn, check the top 5. I think I'm going to pick up Nasujiro. Nasujiro is always going to be the better target, but you could also consider just picking up a random 1k counter and sending this to the bottom to loop back to your deck so that later on you can pick this up to become an attacker in the late game. However, because this is our 3rd search, it means that we're not going to find this for quite a while, and we're playing this game in a way that we're trying to close out the game very soon. Therefore, we're likely not going to actually end up seeing this card in our search. We may have considered doing this the other way around if this was our 1st or 2nd search and we were in a similar sort of scenario. But because we're in the state that we're in, I think that it's fine to just pick up the Nasujiro, because if we end up using one for counter, at least we still have another one that can potentially close out the game. We're definitely not going to see these cards for the rest of the game, but I'm just going to put blocker to the top just in case it ends up going to that point. For 3 don't, play Warcury and end turn with 1 don't active. I'm going to lead effect to get rid of the +3k event to draw a card. 6 don't, I'm going to play down Peter to make all of my characters 7,000 power. Attach 1 dong to leader and 6k at Saturn. Now, as we already see, although, sorry, I messed up the order, this 6k should come first, but most of the time people will end up playing Peter on this turn anyways, so we can assume that the rest of these attacks are going to be 7,000 even if we don't see the Peter. So, my mistake in the ordering, but 6,000 attack is going to generally be the cheapest attack on this turn, so therefore we do want to counter it while possible, because this will help us actually be able to defend our board much better. So I'm going to 2k with Peter. 7k Saturn. This is likely just going to be the largest the attacks ever become. The opponent can technically attach one of the last dong to make one of their attacks 8k, but in that event we can just take the attack. So I'm just going to use the +3k event now. 7k Saturn. The next attack is going to be 7k again, and unfortunately we don't actually have enough counter to defend out the attack fully if we want to play Peter next turn, which is the way that we are playing out these turns. So I am going to take this Saturn attack. There is the chance that they end up leaving this Warcury up active if they are afraid, though it is unlikely. Still, because I am playing on this side, I'm going to hit for 7k at this Saturn again, trying to clear as many characters as possible. Now, I really don't want to lose these cards in hand. This is one of the timings where we really wish we had Charlos in one of the earlier turns. Though we were able to search a lot, we didn't manage to find one of those Charloses to help build our board to make sure that 3 of the characters survive. So unfortunately, Saturn is going to die. But instead of letting Saturn die, I'm going to let Warcury die, because that way I get 1 draw. Building these small resource advantages is very important when you're going first, especially because compared to the player going second, who gets to play 2 4-costs first on the 6 dong turn, who gets to play the 10-cost Gorose, and also even gets 1 extra card at the start of the game, you need to find ways to slowly inch back an advantage, or else you are going to slowly bleed out and die. Right now, we're playing in a way that although our board just got decimated a bit, honestly, we still have pretty strong resources compared to the opponent, who only has 5 and 2 life, where we have 3 and 6 cards. Now it's important for the Imu who's going first to actually be able to make sure that he can close out the game relatively soon to keep this resource advantage that he's been slowly building out over the course of this game. The Imu going second is going to pass this turn with 1 dong active. On this turn, you want to start to consider how far away you are from lethal and how far away the opponent is from lethal. I go through this extensively within the guide, so make sure to just read through that section because it's very, very long. I can't explain it fully in this video, but essentially you want to see how many attacks you're going to need to actually close out the game versus how many attacks the opponent's going to need to close out the game, and only take out the board as much as you need to. If you try to take out their entire board, not only are you losing attacks as they're going to be absorbed by the characters, but they can also get things like the draw off of Warcury and enough time, importantly, to start to spam out the 10-cost Gorose. Now, right now, I really want to decide if I'm going to finish the game with the first 10-cost Gorose or if I'm going to actually end up needing 2, because this is going to end up deciding how I'm going to use my leader effect. He has 1 active dong, so that means that one of these attacks, assuming that it's 7k, because I'm going to play Peter this turn, most likely is going to be absorbed with 1 card. The second attack may have to be absorbed with life, or 2 cards in hand, but that would put them very low. We know that 2 of the cards in hand are the Gorose, and not only that, we also have our leader that can be an attacker as well. We don't have another +4k event or a Charlos currently, so we can just try to find an aggressive angle on the opponent. In that case, I can get the opponent pretty reasonably down to 1 life and at the very least 3 cards in hand. So I think that I don't actually need the second 10-cost Gorose because I'm in a position where once I play the 10-cost Gorose, I should be able to end the game on the turn after that. So I'm going to use my leader effect to just get rid of the 10-cost Gorose and draw a new card. Thankfully, we have 1k counter, which is going to be somewhat helpful. Unfortunately, though, I didn't find a counter event or a Charles, which would have been really nice. We do really want to get those efficient blocks and counters to develop our own resource advantage, but because we still have a relatively powerful aggressive turn, let's just play into that as best as we can. I am going to hit 7k into Saturn once, because if the opponent identifies that they're in danger of dying and starts to go for my life, because I don't have that many counter events or blockers on the board, as in 0, I am actually at threat of dying within the next couple of turns as well. So I'm going to go 7k into Saturn until I at least take out 1. As the Ema going second, I'm going to take this attack because I don't really want to use my resources to defend it and for them to just come at my life anyways. And as the Ema going first, my mission is now accomplished, so I am just going to pivot my attacks to going for face. Now this turn is very complicated, so I may have not played this out perfectly. I may have also messed up some earlier turns. This deck is very complicated, but I hope that you're starting to get an understanding of exactly what is possible. Now with this Peter on the board, my characters are 7,000 power, and I can keep up the aggression 7,000 liter. Now Ema really doesn't want to go down to 1 life this early, so I'm going to use the plus 4k event to defend this attack for only 1 card. Let's go 7k event. We can go 8k because we don't actually have anything to use for this with this 1 dong, but just leaving this as a bluff is fine in this scenario because 7 and 8k isn't a huge difference in this exact scenario. If the opponent defends it, they're very low on cards in hand, and if they take it, then that's good for us either way. By holding up 1 dong, it can potentially disincentivize the opponent from going for an aggressive angle and maybe look to slowly clear out the board and play a war of attrition, so that's the angle that I'm going to go with. It may end up being wrong. Either way, it's a very small difference. 7,000 liter. Unfortunately, as the Ema going second, I'm going to take this attack. As much as I really want to, as the Ema going second, to try to close out the game soon, I need to clear out this board or else I may potentially just lose on the next turn. 7,000 at Saturn. Now the reason to defend this would be if we can actually manage to keep one of these on the board. He's going to end up hitting for 7, 7, 7, and then he's going to use the Godolse and hit for 7 once again with Nasajiro and also 5 with Ema. So there's a very low chance that both these end up staying, so therefore there really isn't a reason for me to actually defend this. I am going to take this attack. 7k Saturn, let's take this too. 5k liter, 1k, 7k liter, 2k, 1k. Right now the value of life is very high because if the opponent decides to go for lethal the next turn, they can make their attacks 8k or 9k, so therefore 7k right now feels somewhat cheap. So I defend this attack to stay at 3 to make it very difficult for the opponent to go for lethal if they choose to. Leader effect. Get rid of that to draw 1 card, play Godolse. Then activate the Godolse's effect, rest 1 dong, and trash 1 card. To trash all the characters, the 5 elders from my trash, starting with Saturn Search. I'll pick up Saturn, 7k liter. This attack I will take with 7,000 into Nasajiro. Take 5k liter, 1k. Leader effect to get rid of Peter and draw 1 card. Not really what we want to see, but thankfully we can get rid of it with our 10 cost Godolse right now. 10 cost Godolse, use the activate main, rest 1 dong, trash 1 card, and trash all the characters on our board to play out all 5 of the Godolse. Saturn's on play effect, we get to check the top 5. And thankfully, Peter. So I think that we're very close to looping our deck. We haven't quite made it there yet. Yeah, we're 1 card away. So if you've been keeping track of the searches, what have we not seen yet? Hopefully all of my search hands have been visible to the camera. Have you been keeping track of the searches? Do you know what could potentially be in our life? I can tell you. I don't know what the last card is, but we haven't seen one of our 2Ks and we haven't seen one of our counter events. And that counter event is actually going to be a problem for us because we can't leave any active dong. But I'm pretty sure we haven't seen a 2K and we haven't seen a counter event. I may have forgot about 1 card, but in the case that I didn't, the other card would be a 1k counter. So with that in mind, because we're going to get a draw off of War Curie, we can assume that we are going to draw into 3k counter when the opponent decides to go for lethal. So the amount of damage that the opponent is going to have next turn, should they go for lethal and should they have Nasajiro, is going to be 7, 7, 7, 8, 8, 8. If we can defend that, then we can guarantee winning. So if we can just defend 2 of the opponent's attacks, we will be fine. And as we know that we're going to be drawing into 3k, we will be fine. In that case, there's actually an argument to not even rest this Izas button, but we're going to do so anyways because it can force them to block with one of their characters, so therefore reduce some of their attacks in the next turn. So let's just go 7k leader. And as the Ema going second, I know that I have to go for lethal next turn because if I decide to stall the game for one turn longer, I am going to lose just due to the fact that I have so few resources. So I'm just going to take the attack and go for lethal the next turn. Now this was a relatively quick game, which may worry you because of how long this video is, but I have been explaining everything. If this game decides to go longer, you would obviously want to defend this 7k attack with the Warcury block to draw one card to just build out your resources, but because we're deciding to go for lethal on this turn right now, we want to use these cards as attackers. Anyways, the best thing that we can do as Ema is to just try to go for lethal. 7k leader. Now, even if the opponent doesn't play out Nasjuro and just spreads out the Dong on their characters that they have right now, that would just be 9k 3 times, and we just need to defend one, and we would be able to defend it no matter what. So I'm fine taking this 7k because the alternative is also an option that I can defend. And there's one of our 2ks. 7k leader. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter. We're kind of on our victory lap. So though there is maybe an optimal way to counter out and do this, we're just going to go through the movements, 2k, 1k to defend this attack. 7k leader, just block to see actually which card this was. 1k, which means that this should be a counter event. 8k leader with Peter, just block that. 8k leader with Ema, take that. There it is. And play Nasjuro for 5, attach 1 Dong, and 8k leader one more time to hopefully go for game, but unfortunately, we have enough. Then the turn is passed back to us, and we have game. And there's the first card from our search. Finally looped back to us. So even if we needed to play another turn, we could have. Still though, the way that we have played this out, we are now in a position where we absolutely have to end the game now, and thankfully, because the opponent had to go for game the turn before, if they decide to go for the 10 Kaskoro set, obviously the turn will be different as well. But they had to go for lethal, so we can respond with a very easy 17,000 leader to end the game. Thank you guys for watching the first part of the Ema Mirror. It was a very long video, but I'll see you guys in part 2 explaining going second. Thank you guys for watching this video on the Ema Mirror. I hope that you learned something new. If you want to learn a bit more, I do have a guide in the description below, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And now I need to shout out some people who pinged me on Twitter saying that my guide helped them, just as a thank you. So sorry if I mess up some of the pronunciation here. Please ping me on Twitter once you get Ema results as well, so I can shout you out in a video as well. Let's get right into it because there are quite a few names. Okay. Jan Skip Berkemeyer. Shout out to you. Famous Hearthstone player. Great guy. Brian Williams, Rockstar. Coach Kobo. F. Sakura. Maxley. Craig McFan. Bugolshi. Phil. Capital DLAR. Dalar. Raulido. Enrique Romo. And Trippy. Sorry if I missed you, if I didn't see your tweet. I'm really happy that the guide helped you guys out. Please let me know if you have any more results. Thank you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.